Okay, Tao and Samuel are a tough act to follow, so I'll do my best. First, I want to tell you how honored I am to be here, and thank you for your time shared with us today. As John said, I am from the Dominican Republic in the Caribbean, and the first slide I want to share with you is this. This is where people think I live and work, and this is actually where I live and work. And I know there are some people from the Caribbean here, so don't let them trick you when they say that. This is actually a street in what we call the colonial city. That is, believe it or not, World Heritage City because it's the first settlement of the colonial urban era for the American continent. And that street is in this city, Santo Domingo, is the capital city of the Dominican Republic, a metropolitan area of 4 million inhabitants, so similar to Boston in terms of population. And the country itself is 10 million, so already half of the population lives in this metropolitan area. Just to give you some geographic context, in the Caribbean, we share the island with Haiti. And in the whole region, we have approximately 43 million inhabitants. And in our island, we have half of that population. So what happens in our island definitely has an impact geographically beyond the Caribbean. So what I'm highlighting here is the line, because we can say that probably the most interesting territory in the region is the line that we share with Haiti. And that's going to be much of my focus in my presentation with you guys today. So why I have been interested in boundaries in general. When I trained as an architect first, before becoming a landscape architect, I realized that drawing lines was probably the most important exercise that we did as designers. And I perfectly recall doing a workshop with Susana Torres, where I was connecting in a slum like a new road, and she asked me, "Are you aware that this line will displace more than 150 families?" And when I went to the site and met all the people, I realized the power that we have in our hands when we translate it into the territory. And I researched that at many scales for the history of idea of that political line, later studying mapping as design process in more speculative or experimental work. And then when I shifted to the landscape scale, many interests coincided. First, I wanted to study the borderline between Haiti and Dominican Republic as a public space. And at the same time, I was looking for a practice where I didn't need the commission of a particular client in order to respond creatively to that challenge. So when I went back to the DR, I decided that I was going to do an unsolicited project and look for the stakeholders to make it happen. And those are the images that you see here. It was to develop a binational park between Haiti and the DR. From now on, I'm going to say the DR to save some time. So an NGO supported this initiative. This is an image of the northern side of the border that we're going to see later in a much bigger project. And also the Ministry of Environment, showing these ideas that were more romantic and showing the potential of the site was quite successful until we started to do some work on the ground, that people, governors, senators, and such, realized that they were owners of some of those lands. So everything that we did was destroyed, we got sued, and even when we were successful in the project, that was not only in the border, because it became a much bigger initiative to conserve land and convert it into parks. I really thought that I was going to be designing parks for 10, 15 years. And the legal situation that we faced really made the project stop. So 3 lessons I learned here as a designer. First, sometimes it's more important to undo than to do. So you need to be prepared, especially if you want to be engaged in more complex situations and more large-scale strategies. You need to be prepared for that. That sometimes is, here I was actually defining boundaries before I could do some construction and some design, and actually cleaning the sites from dumpsters, as you see, land use for illegal mining, extraction. And second, lawyers are very important. So if you think the fight with engineers, structural engineers is difficult, with lawyers, they're very important. And third, private sector. If you want to have a long time, permanent impact, you need to get involved in the private sector, and that never occurred to me. For me, this was public sector, and that was it. But land ownership in developing countries is a huge issue. Sometimes one land will have 5, 10 owners, and corruption cases that you unveil on the way that you don't want to, deal with that. So you need a lawyer. Then after this project, if we were successful, these land are conserved, are part of the Ministry of Environment. I decided to join this office that I had been collaborated informally for a couple of years, and it's called Shearly Initiative. Shearly is actually this month 10 years old. We are a group of 8 people. We are privately funded, and the unique characteristic of Shearly is that it has a horizontal structure. So I was sure that I was not going to deal ever again with the situation that I have with this other project. So we have the legal people, the legal team, the research and design team, and the finances working from day one. And what is that we do? This group of young entrepreneurs that we met along the way in many different projects, they decided to fund our projects and our ideas. And what we do is we have to come up with projects of large-scale design that could have positive impact and hopefully develop new economies for the country. And that's what we do. We have to think about ideas and make them happen. So before I get to the Border Initiative project, I'm going to show you one project that is built, is off and running, so you see how we work as an office. This is a map of the methodology. By any means that organized. You can imagine the discussion and the back and forth, but it gives you an idea and a structured idea of the organization. These are the film studios in the Dominican Republic. For this project, what we wanted to do, we already had seen that a lot of films were happening, but we didn't have a legal framework and we didn't have a formal industry. So what Shearly did was not only to choose the site and to design the studios, but to help the government frame the legal aspect of this, so you can have and attract people to come and produce movies in the city. And we have to seek out the partnership, in this case with Pinewood Studios. If any of you are fans of Harry Potter and those movies, those are the studios that help us with the technical component of it. And right when they were launching that project, I joined the office and I was asked to actually form the unit for planning and research. So that's what I do and for Shearly. And in this case, the architecture team, I think, did a terrific job in building the image, but it's not only about the image for us that is very clear, that adds value to any project. It's also about where you should place it, how this should keep growing, and what's the future of that. And it's very relevant because it started not only film studios, but the economic industry in the Dominican Republic at an international level. And once we do these projects, they become their own thing. In this case, it's a corporation independent from Shearly, and we don't gain money or value of it. So maybe in the future, that's a discussion, but right now, we have to let go, actually. Some of them become an NGO, some of them a public-private partnership. In this case, it's its own company that you can look it up online. It's called Lantica Media, or through Pinewood. So that project was open in 2014. 1 year before that, we were already doing some collaborations along the border, small things. And I was also still looking at the project that I had initiated as a binational park. And it coincided with a very bad moment in our relationship with our sister country of Haiti. As you know, in 2010, Haiti was hit by an earthquake that changed everything, including our relationship with that country. And in 2012, Haiti banned a lot of commercial products from the Dominican Republic. And 1 year later, the Constitutional Tribunal of the Dominican Republic approved a very inhumane law that probably a lot of you were exposed to through the news and newspapers. Thankfully, that was withdrawn. But within this political background, we decided to really launch a big initiative. And we had a strong support from the private sector from both sides of the borderline, because the private sectors were the ones that were called in to help out and calm the situation that was definitely getting a little bit out of control, even socially and psychologically, between both countries. And that initiative is called CBQ. That's for, in English, would be Quisqueya Binational Economic Council. How CBQ is operated is a foundation, a nonprofit foundation in the Dominican side and a nonprofit in the Haitian side. And then CBQ is like the concept, and Shearly has worked to frame all of that with the financial and legal team. And we focus in 4 areas along that line. And these points that you see here are actually where the more intense economic activity happens, and where we already have urban settlements on both sides of the line. And I'll take you from the south to the north, and each sector has its unique characteristic, and we're responding to each of them differently. I'm going to focus in the pilot project, but very briefly, I want to show you the textures and how each of these sectors look, because we sometimes have a very standard idea of the border between Haiti and Dominican Republic as being very homogenic, like one side deforested and one side super green. Even if that's the case, in some of the areas, it's not the identity of the borderline. So here you see 2 towns in each side, and the idea here is nature tourism and a hiking high trail. This one has a lot of research, actually, from European and American institutions studying this, because Haitian Lake is growing, and as you can see, it's already in the Dominican Republic, and all these buildings now are underwater, and it's a very active crossing. And the Dominican Lake is actually also growing. So at some point, they're going to meet, and there's a lot of agricultural land that has been lost. And the theory with more consensus is that climate change is doing this. And I don't know if you know, but the country was declared one of the 5 places with more increasing risk due to climate change. So nature has been very generous to the Caribbean, but at the same time, in this century of climate change effect is also, a vulnerability of the area. And this is the sector with more potential for agriculture production and logistics on both sides. And here's where I'm going to focus. These are the 2 largest cities and the most dynamic commercial exchange between the 2 countries along the border. And the place that I'm highlighting here, if this lets me, is the industrial zone. Why are we choosing first this side? First, because that industrial zone is somewhat well respected in both countries. It's a successful case study because it has been supported by international multilaterals like the World Bank, the European Union, and at the same time, it has created 7,000 jobs. It was open not too long ago, but to have an idea, only 1% of the people per year quit their jobs or lose their jobs, so 99% permanency. So when someone gets a job here, they really value it, and vice versa. That's important to point out. But as we know, industrial cities are the fastest growing cities. And if you see in these images in 2003, how was the footprint, especially in the Haitian side, and after the industrial zone, the footprint, 14 years after, and much of that growth is regarded to be caused by the presence of the industrial zone, that at the same time has had the effect to increase the commercial interaction between the 2 cities, because more money, more possibilities of that, and this binational market happens here. So our first question was, as CBQ, what we want to do is to attract investment to this area, so people can stop seeing it as a conflict zone, but as a potential for growth and investment. And we want to triplicate the size of this industrial area. And we are very aware that that's going to have a huge impact. And the question is, how much land do we need then for a city in 20 years that's going to be probably half million people? Can we think about this as a binational metropolitan area? And the job of the designer, a lot of this information, the work we're doing is still confidential, and I'm happy to share one by one, but not being recorded here. But I do want to show you how we have approached it and the role of the design and the planning team. I often joke that my work is as a space translator, that I have to translate these investment ideas that are very aggressive because we push them as far as we can in terms of market demand and in terms of financing. And here, if you see, is that we are thinking about the next industrial site as a linear one, so we can conserve more land, but also that the borderline can become an international road, so it will be more of an experience. And we are trying to include some land for urban development. And the green that you see here is that binational park. We're definitely trying to get that in and make it happen. So 3 things that we have to do as a project. We want to engage at the overall scale of that binational city. And for that, we're working with the United Nations. They're going to be launching very soon an international bid for actually doing the master plan and some ordinances for this. And also we want to engage with the physicality of the rest of the territory. That green land that you see here is the one that we were able to conserve for the binational park. This is the existing binational market. They're building really fast after we started the binational market on the Haitian side. Both of these have been funded by the European Union. And if you want to know a number for this building, and this is going to be $45 million. So in this size, there is money, 45 million euros, sorry. And if you see, nobody wanted to engage in this building because the nature of the exchange is very urban, it's very public. So that's why you see like all these small houses around it. And nobody wants to be in the second floor. So women actually ended up being the second floor. So if anybody's interested in gender in this type of cases, this is a very unique study. So, and these are the lands where CBQ first pilot project is going to happen. So physical territory is important for us to engage in how architecture can express a new imagination and a new culture. But also the human landscape is important of how those exchanges happen, because with more employees, more of this is going to happen. And we are aware of that. And also the environmental conditions of the site. You know, the river is the one that defines where the border is, but we see that you can cross it by feet. But all this area during the last hurricane that we got hit by Irma, it's all flooded already. So let's see how obviously we can include all that. And just to finish, I think it's clear how a designer and a planner can engage in places like this, but for my year here, I would like to place this in a global context. Some data is that we know that, for example, if we zoom up all the lines that are bordered in the world, it will be equivalent to give it 6 rounds around the planet. So we're talking about a lot of land that are within border regions. And those regions are actually in the future going to be crucial. As Samuel was saying, and I link what I want to say with his conclusion, is that now we have 65 million people. In a lecture that I attended the other day, they were projecting that in 20 years we're going to have 1 billion refugees. And this data, we don't find it in urban magazines and stuff. I found this data in the CIA. So for us, it's still a security issue and a military issue or a crisis issue. So my question is, like, if we can respond to this, and if border regions can become an urban model before it become a site of crisis. So with that, I finish, and thank you very much for your time.